Okay, so we're in collections and we're looking at dictionary methods. Dictionaries are our fourth different collection type, and we're going to look in particular at the get method. So the first thing that we are going to do is copy some code so that we can make a dictionary as we've done previously. So let's make a dictionary. Press return just to check that it works, and we've got a dictionary with 3 items in it: Alice, Bob and Charlie, and each with their respective ages 10, 12 and 11. We are now going to try to use the get method, and we're going to try and do that when the key exists. And what do we mean when a key exists? Well, we've got an Alice, a Bob and a Charlie. If we try to pick something that didn't exist, we're going to observe a different behavior. So when the key exists, the key either exists or it doesn't. So there's 2 ways of doing this, and we've already sort of like seen the first way, which is we could do result. We could set a variable to result. I'm going to call it the keys way. So we can get a result using the keys way, and we can get a result another way. So we've got result underscore keys as our first variable, and we can do D and then whoever we decide to pick. So D, open brackets, brings up the drop down list of the available names, and we select Alice, for example, and we can then print result keys just like that, and we get 10 because Alice is 10 and the Alice was the one that was selected in result keys. We can now try to do result underscore, and this time we're just going to attempt to use a get function, so we'll call it result underscore get, and we'll do d dot get and then Alice, and we can print result underscore get, and both ways get the same result. So it looks like the get method works in the same way as using the keys to select the value. If we hover over the get method, it says return the value for the key if it's in the dictionary, else the false. So we've got one little extra bit if it's not in the dictionary. So let's just try this out. So we've got when the key exists, and then copy that and paste when the key does not exist. So we're going to try that. And before we do that, we're just going to tidy up our code a little bit so that it's clear to us. We will do something like result keys method. That was a result with the keys method so that we can identify them for later on. And we can do the result with the get method. So one result is with the keys method, the other result is with the get method. Let's put a little colon at the end so it's clear. So we're going to try to see what happens when the key does not exist, and maybe this is going to be the clue already, but we're going to move into a try except block pattern with an exception as E. And what are we going to try? We're going to try the result keys is equal to, and this time we're going to do D and then open brackets, but we're not going to select one of these. These ones are the ones that appear to be available. They've been picked up by the linter and they are in the drop down list, but we're going to try and pick something that doesn't exist. So we'll try to pick Darren, and we will do print the key does not exist, colon, and then whatever the error message might be, if there was an error message. But if there's no error message, then we could print result keys. So we tried to run this, and we look down and we get the key does not exist. Darren, this gracefully exited or passed through the code with the try except block. The try has clearly failed. We didn't print result keys. We printed the key does not exist, and the error message was E. And conveniently, the error message is actually the value of the key. So we could actually have, if we just do this before, so outside of the try block, just to observe what actually happens, we get a key error. So that's actually the type of error, and indeed the error message is the value of the key itself. So that's what we get. But we want to pass through our code nicely, and we sort of like had the feeling that this might fail. So also let's just print here just so that we can show what we're actually trying to do. Let's try when the key does not exist. So that's what we're actually trying, and we will put a \n. Remember, it's a new line just before that string. We're allowed to put new lines anywhere in the sentence that we've got, anywhere in our string. We're putting a new line just before, just something new to show. So we run that, and now we get a nice cleaner version of this. Let's try when the key does not exist, and indeed we get the key does not exist, Darren. Because it wasn't in our list, it didn't exist inside of the dictionary. There's no Darren here. There's an Alice, there's a Bob, and there's a Charlie, but there's no Darren. So the next part will be to try using the get method and see what happens from that. So we'll do result using the get method. Let's put a little bit of white space in there so that we can see. Result using the get method is equal to d.get. So we can do that again, and this time we're trying to look for Darren, like that, and we can print result, and let's see what occurs. And we get thrown an error message because I've actually typed in result and not result underscore get. So let's get that one right. Result underscore get is what we want, not just result. Result never existed. So we run that again, and we get back a none. So if we take a look again at this get method, we see that we've got the method. The method is called get, and it takes in the value, which is the key, and it's of type string in this particular case, and it's going to return something back. In our case, it's returning an integer back, or it's returning back a none if the key doesn't exist. So we're going to get a none back, but we can actually go even one better than that. We can do the same thing, just like this, and this time instead of returning us back a none, we can actually return back a default message, so something else, if the string doesn't work, or if the key doesn't work. So let's try and put in something like the person is not here, and we run this piece of code, and it says the person is not here. So we'll just tidy this up a little bit. We know that we like to have, when we've got repeated pieces of code here, we prefer to use a variable. So let's just try and search for the name. So we can do name is equal to, and then Darren, like that, and that means that we can replace name, Darren for name here, and name for Darren over here, and finally we can replace it over here as well. So now we can just look for the name, and that would work for any name. So when we run this again, we get the key doesn't exist Darren, we get none over here, and we get the person, a person is not here, which is the default message if we chose to put in a second argument which allows for the default message. And we could now change this to any name. So let's search for Charlie and run this piece of code, and everything works there because Charlie was in a list and Charlie was 11 years old. So that's basically it. That is how the get method works for dictionaries inside of collections in Python.